It is once again time. Raw review for September the 8th, 2014 after last week's catastrophic train wreck of a show. We had nowhere to go but up, and fortunately this episode ended up being an okay show. So I guess this week was the season premiere of Monday Night Raw, ironically enough. In the first week of the season, of the NFL season. I don't know if there's corruption, collusion, or if it's just a coincidence. But this was kind of a sad ploy by the WWE to try and rival Monday Night Football. Anyway, we kicked off the show with an awesome cage match between Bray Wyatt and Chris Jericho. Going in, I fully expected Bray Wyatt to be the one that ended up killing Jericho off, since I hear Jericho's going to go on a Fozzy tour this month and will be gone for quite some time once again. But these guys go out, they have a completely competitive match, a pretty damn good one at that, a lot more entertaining, a lot better, and made Bray Wyatt look a lot better than that match he had with John Cena at Extreme Rules. And it ends with Bray Wyatt winning and then attacking Jericho afterward. And at this point, it would have been okay to have Jericho be killed off and just completely get dieted and never be seen again and make Bray Wyatt look like the one that killed him off. But the problem I had with this was, later on in the night, Randy Orton goes to the training room and attacks Chris Jericho on his knee and just takes him out. It's like, why? I understand Jericho was talking shit last week and all, and, you know, made Randy Orton look like a pansy, and Orton's picking up the scraps for Bray Wyatt's hard work and all that. But do we really need a Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton feud? Let's think about it right now. What would look better for the future? Bray Wyatt killing off Chris Jericho for the time being, or Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton when Chris Jericho comes back? Exactly. But now the question becomes, Bray Wyatt did look impressive. I will give them that. He hasn't looked this impressive in quite some time. Now the question becomes, how does WWE follow up on this? Because if we've learned something from the WWE, they like to constantly kick themselves in the ass once they have a great heel that has momentum. Anyway, so in kind of a fun segment to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit after Chris Jericho got killed, Dolph Ziggler shows us the leaked pictures of The Miz that were just leaked by 4chan. I'm glad those guys were able to hack The Miz's phone. You know, I'm not quite sure what he was talking about with all these Hollywood scandals of the Hollywood leaked pictures, you know. I don't know. I wish he would have shown us a few to actually, like, prove it. I don't know. I think he was just ad-libbing and just made something up off the top of his head, because I don't think there's any credible sources here. But these pictures of The Miz were definitely real, and I think, you know, I heard Melina took a few pictures, something like that. So, you know, if he had shown those on Raw, I think that would have been, you know, pretty win Raw. So up next, it was Paige and AJ Lee versus the newly formed tag team of Total Divas, Natalya and Rosa Mendez. And just as Ryan Ludwig would like, JBL did his damnedest to praise Rosa Mendez. And there's not much to praise there, but whatever is there, JBL manages to amplify to a whole nother level. Anyway, I did like this scene here, although I did not like, I was a little bit offended by what Michael Cole said. You know, he said that, you know, I was a little bit offended by what Michael Cole said. You know, he said he swore to God he never saw Batista, and now he says he swears to God he's never seen a diva tag another diva by the tit. Yet if we remember correctly, 2.5 years ago, that douchebag Beth Phoenix knocked Brie a whole size cup down when she slapped her on the tit and tagged her in the Royal Rumble. So, Michael Cole, you buffoon. Almost as big as a buffoon as Rosa Mendez was, like JBL, when he first started praising her, and then once she didn't want to tag in Natalya, he pretty much he buried her to the moon, kind of like what he did with Steve, but more on that in a little bit. Anyway, then we get the awkward stare down between Paige and AJ, and I thought the inclusion of Nikki in this would include an actual interaction with Nikki Bella. I don't count last week as a real interaction, considering they just completely disregarded the fact that either of the two were in the ring. And this week, it was just Paige and AJ, looking at the championship. And I don't know. I thought this was a little bit weird. This has gotten pretty stale, guys. This is why the inclusion of Nikki Bella was necessary, is because it would have added a whole different element. And the fact that she wasn't added, she wasn't in the Divas Championship picture tonight, kind of hurt the build toward that match, considering it's 2 weeks away. Next week is the go home show, and that's the only time that she's actually going to talk and interact with the two top divas in the division right now. So then the segment between Paul Heyman and John Cena, which I found to be the toughest thing to not tune out to Monday Night Football to. And that was really hard, guys, with my fantasy team on the line on Monday Night Football. I just could not tune away from this segment. A very, very well done segment, I should say. And one thing that I like about Paul Heyman is he'll take something that's been done before and he'll completely make it his own and make it interesting to the point where you feel like you haven't seen this before, although you did. Because every time you think about, someone telling John Cena, hey, turn heel already, you get tired of these people hating on you and stuff. You think of that storyline he had with Kane, going back to 2012 again. Hey, maybe this was January of 2012. I mean, you had a diva tag a diva in the tit, and we have John Cena embracing the hate. Anyway, the raw emotion showed by John Cena is something we need to see a little bit more often when he abandons that corny gimmick and that, that stupid shtick where he's, this fucking goofy character that just cracks jokes and doesn't take anything seriously. Once he becomes this guy, he's a little, how do I put this, a little less tough to tune out the TV with. When John Cena tunes into this character, he becomes a lot more tolerable to watch on TV. I'm not saying he becomes The Rock. I'm not saying he becomes Stone Cold. I'm just saying I can actually watch this John Cena, and I can actually somewhat enjoy watching this John Cena. One thing that I did not like, one hate that I just had to embrace here, was this cocky, arrogant, disgusting, disrespectful heel John Cena, this mean man, just completely disrespecting the legend of The Undertaker. Because what the hell was this when he said, and I quote, The Undertaker gets defeated by Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. We haven't heard a peep from him since. John Cena gets beat by Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. I'm standing right here, Jack. Unquote. What kind of a disgusting, putrid piece of foul-mouthed garbage disrespects the GOAT, the living legend of The Undertaker McCool? Anyway, on a serious note, I thought this was, again, pretty good. I didn't like how, Paul Heyman, even though he's just an advocate, he's being bullied around by John Cena. And, some Be a Star campaign these guys are running. The face of it is bullying a fat guy who's just trying to help him beat Brock Lesnar. But, okay, we're going to see Brock Lesnar next week. He returns, that long-awaited, illustrious return. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, that thing they did with The Rock back in 2011, where they just did like that whole thunder thing and all the lights turned out because we haven't seen Brock Lesnar in such a long time for him to finally return. So then in the worst match of the night, Seth Rollins ended up beating Sheamus. And guys, I mean, I know I give Sheamus a lot of shit for never selling a move, but I gotta tell you, this was the worst case of Sheamus not selling something. I mean, literally, Seth Rollins did not hit a second move in a row, and Sheamus sold the curb stomp 50 years late. And not only that, but then it was that thing with the crowd where the crowd decided to get pumped up with Sheamus. You know, they chanted, bro. What did Sheamus do? He just stayed with the sleeper hold. Yes, they're over here going crazy for you. Let me just stay with that sleeper hold. And he waits till after they die down to decide to make his big-time babyface comeback. Seriously, Sheamus, you could not sell Empty Ho a naked picture of Nikki Bella with a free pass to go smash her the very next night. Alright? That's how bad Sheamus is at selling something. So up next, we heard the Russian national anthem. That's exactly what we needed halfway through the show. Rusev and Lana announced that it's made official. Mark Henry versus Rusev at Raw of Champions. Raw of Champions. Mark Henry versus Rusev. Remind me, who's the champion in this match? Yeah, I don't know either. So on to the part that everyone is jizzing about that I myself enjoyed a lot. It was Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn, versus Tyler Breeze and Tyson Kidd. And these guys actually went out and put on a clinic. And this is one of the reasons that I want the brand split again. What this reminded me of was those fun, fast-paced matches on SmackDown that you just wouldn't get on Raw. Those, the ones that really flew under the radar, that, those hardcore fans were really into and had a lot of fun with, that kind of took away from the storyline purposes and just went out there and had a nice little wrestling match that was fast, fun, and, kind of applied to all demographics. I mean, it's not like they don't have enough superstars to do SmackDown. I mean, they have all these NXT guys that could be called up, and they could just do the brand split. The only problem is they just don't have any star power for it. So up next was the Jerry Springer segment. And I gotta say, as much as shit as this gets, it really wasn't that bad. I don't even think it was bad at all. I mean, if you were looking for this whole in-depth storyline that was just going to break your heart into a million pieces and make you shed a tear, then yeah, it was bad. But, I mean, if you looked at it lightheartedly with a good sense of humor, this actually wasn't bad at all. It was actually pretty funny. And yes, any Bella fan is going to sit there and cry that they're making this feud into a joke. But I don't personally really see it that way. I think they're just like taking it light right now. And then once we get into high gear, once we get into an important pay-per-view, when they can actually have a blow-off to this match, that's when things are going to get serious. That's when things are going to get personal. And that's when things are going to get, there's going to be bad blood there between the two of them. Because for right now, moving Nikki Bella into the title picture is the brilliant move. Because Brie doesn't want to fight her. And until she wants to fight her, that's when you stick Nikki back into the feud. Hopefully, maybe she'll be Divas champion by then. I mean, let's be honest here. Would we really be surprised if Nikki Bella walked out of Raw of Champions with the Divas championship around her waist, and that ends up being the fuel that, fires Brie to finally want to go after Nikki? Because I personally would not have any trouble. I don't have any troubles visualizing this, picturing this at all. And I personally think that right now the reason they turned this into a little bit of a joke is because they don't want to make it all too serious just yet. Because once you make it serious, there's only so much you can do until you have to have the match. And that's not something that the WWE might want to do until a big pay-per-view. And since the next quote-unquote big pay-per-view that's coming up is Survivor Series. Since that's not really a big four anymore, they might have to hold it off till the Royal Rumble or even say WrestleMania. Anyway, one thing that I find really hypocritical about the fans that attend these shows, aside from that great crowd in Las Vegas that was into the Bella segment the entire time, is that throughout this segment, they chant boring, or they boo, or they act like they just don't give a shit. Yet, once the brawl commences, they lose their shit and march the hell out. And I ask, do you guys chant boring for the same reasons that you chant CM Punk? Is it just because it's the cool thing to do, everyone else is doing it, and everyone likes or dislikes said thing or person, and you decide that you're going to look cool with them if you do it? Because I personally believe that there are a lot more people that are enjoying this feud secretly in the closet than they'd like to admit. Anyway, but I think it all goes back to the point I made in the beginning that they're probably saving this match for a bigger time, which is when they're going to get more physical and become more personal with the rivalry and steer away from the over-the-top jokes. Anyway, speaking of over-the-top jokes, the whole Jerry Springer being carried out on a segment and then given the old thumbs up, I was pretty concerned over Jerry Springer's health, so we're happy to see that he's here. And that useless guy, who the fuck is this guy? That's not Steve. I know Steve got his own show. Yeah, it's Fat Steve now. And I know the real Steve got his own show where, he puts idiots in their place. And yet this Fat Steve doesn't get involved, doesn't protect Springer. Like, dude, you had one job. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to see Springer get some action because, if you have two twins rolling around on top of you, I don't know exactly how many guys would fight to get them off. But still, Fat Steve, do your goddamn job. So then it was the long-awaited return of one of the greatest tag teams in the history of the WWE. And guys, I know I like to be sarcastic sometimes, and I like to joke around about stuff, but I truly mean this from the very bottom of my heart. Hand to the Bible, this is one of the greatest tag teams in the history of time. Los Matadores made their return to Monday Night Raw after a long-awaited return, and they took on the team of Stardust and Gold. And Stardust ends up winning the match for himself and Gold. And I gotta say, this Gold guy, he's pretty impressive in that very ring. It seems like, he's a longtime veteran, but we all know that he's a young guy. There's a striking resemblance to Gold Dust, who we've seen years prior, but this Gold guy, he's pretty good. Anyway, the Usos end up attacking Stardust and Gold from behind, and I thought this was a decent way to actually build up their stuff. It didn't do a lot, but jumping them on the stage with their crutches, I thought this did pretty good. It was a lot better than what normal attacks are, where they just attack them in the ring. They actually got them on stage with the crutches, so I thought this did pretty good, and it got actually a decent reaction from the crowd. So then it was Adam Rose versus Titus O'Neil. I gotta say, why are we pushing the bunny? Anyway, they're pushing the bunny to the moon here. And, it's obvious now. We all know who that bunny is. There's absolutely no question about it. Zero doubt that this bunny is definitely James Storm teaching Sonata how to be the great Sonata, the great James Storm. Absolutely, showing him the fundamentals of, a great wrestler and a great persona that can get the fans behind him. Because as we see, this James Storm guy is pretty damn good. One thing that would be really funny, though, is if one week the bunny decided to, reveal himself as, Prince Devitt or, Kevin Steen, or just someone that the internet fucking loves, or Kenta, someone like that, and then that the internet would just fucking rage so hard over seeing this guy under the bunny suit. I think they would automatically like make that guy the most underrated and undervalued, underutilized superstar in the history of the business. Anyway, before I get into the main event, I just wanted to note that earlier Xavier Woods posted a picture of the new Nation of Domination back together, I guess you could say, and yet they didn't strike while the iron was hot tonight. There was no mention of either of the three of them, so I guess that's good since there's still a possibility we might see something on Splatdown or next week on Raw, but I don't know, I thought that was a little bit weird. You would think now that would be that Xavier Woods posting that picture, that would be a hint that we might see them back together in the very near future, make a comeback. You know, I think this is definitely bigger than if the Shield decided to get back together. This is one of the greatest three-man stables in history. Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, and Big E. Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. And I gotta say, this is better than their SummerSlam match, but not really by much. I mean, I guess I enjoyed it a little bit more. I did tune out a little bit to check on the Cardinals and the Chargers, but anyway, just as I predicted on Twitter an hour before this match, Kane and Seth Rollins ended up interfering, but I don't really take a whole lot of credit in that. You could see that coming from light years away. But one thing that I didn't expect was for them to lower the cage and beat the holy crap out of Roman Reigns. And not only that, but, I saw some guy raging on the internet wanting, whoever was on production to be killed for nearly killing Seth Rollins. And I think that's pretty hilarious how they seriously thought that Seth Rollins was going to get stabbed here. I mean, yeah, it did look a little bit too close for comfort, but think back. Seth Rollins has been able to sell these things like they're real really good. So now it looks like we might get Roman Reigns versus Triple H since they're sticking the entire authority on Roman Reigns. So Bullet Sky O'Connor, your wish may just come true after all. Because even though it looked like he was feuding with Seth Rollins the last 2 weeks and then with Randy Orton this week, now that they've stuck the entire authority on him, Roman Reigns might be like, hey, you know what? If you're going to, go against the snake, you might as well cut off the head. And Triple H is the head of that snake. So it is still a possibility, but I just wouldn't get my hopes up for it. I'm still fully expecting either Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton 3. Anyway, overall, this has been an improvement. This was an improvement over last week's catastrophic, abysmal, even my Vince Russo decided that last week's episode was not watchable. Vince Russo, of all people, said that last week's episode was not watchable. But steady improvements this week, a little bit better storyline progression, and some decent build toward the pay-per-view. Cesaro continues to play mind games with Sheamus. This guy, he's in my nightmares now because of all these mind games he's playing. I'm afraid he's going to pop up at night. He's obviously the thing that goes bump in the night. So this has been the MTOMR review saying yada yada yada. Blah blah blah.